You guys have you actually held off eating that turkey until you knew we were going to be back on Sunday. Go ahead and eat that turkey now. Better yet, I think it's too late. You may want to throw that turkey out.
Toss the leftovers away.
You throw out the leftovers away. And over here in Ybor, I actually walked in a little bit late today. Why? Because I had to wait because there was a chicken crossing the street. I don't know why. Tried to ask him.
I don't get it.
It's all right. We can discuss all these things in the rotation.
Oh, that's. I'm sorry. It's the wrong one.
Okay, well, it looks like our guest is not here yet and may not be here. Perhaps she missed that limo that pulled up to her house at 4:00 this morning to take her over here.
She was coming here?
No, not really. You know, and there is no limo either. It's just it made us sound like we were more important.
If she was coming here, I'd feel really stood up.
Well, let's at least introduce ourselves. We are the Masters of Cannabis. My name is Gary Stein. I'm the Master of Public Health and the Director of Politics over here for Central Coast Normal. And to my left, your right, no, to my right, your left, is our Deputy Director, our Master of Business Administration, Carlos Jose Angel Armida.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh, man.
You can call him CJ.
A warm welcome on these rotation Sundays.
Absolutely. It's so nice to have a crowd like that at your fingertips. And to our far right, coming to us from above the Beltway, where he hits him below the Beltway, our Executive Director and Board Member of National Normal, Christopher Cano.
Thank you.
And I see you've already got into Christmas mode here. You've already got your Santa Claus suit on.
If only. I might have to dye it a little whiter.
Oh, no. No, last week was Black Friday, so I think it kind of fits in. Now, just so you know, I did think that Black Friday was when you're supposed to use the black market. I guess that's not what they intended.
You bought weed on the black market on Black Friday.
I didn't say that.
Well, I can tell you that in the DC area, there were tons of legacy market deals. Folks were advertising, all across.
I always figured that guy with the bell, he's got to be on something to do that all damn day.
My favorite stoner / Christmas movie is that Seth Rogen. I forget the fucking name of it all the time.
The Night Before.
The Night Before, yeah, where it's like Seth Rogen and his buddies are like trying to
Anthony Mackie. I forget who the third guy is.
The drug dealer that is like actually an angel in the end. It's the best.
Isn't Seth Rogen Jewish?
Yeah, well, he portrays a Jewish person on that.
Oh, well, that's good.
He doesn't play a Christian.
Usually we play like Italians.
He wears a Hanukkah sweater the whole time.
Yeah. It's about the holidays. It's not about Christmas.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like in this country, evangelical Christians in the mainstream love to feel persecuted and claim discrimination because people say happy holidays, but it's their ignorance. They don't realize there's like 6 holidays around this time from various religions, and faiths all around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and actually, of course, as we know, Christmas, if it was actually celebrating the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, should be in the spring.
Indeed, because the shepherds would not have been in the fields in December. It is way too fucking cold for that.
Wait, what are they doing in the fields?
What are you talking about? It was born December 25th on the year 0.
Yeah. They were actually using that date because they happened to be the winter solstice, which was a pagan holiday. And if they celebrated that, no one would notice that they were actually celebrating a different holiday and wouldn't come over and chop them up and feed them to the lions.
Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Carlos, but the nuns in my Catholic school said that Jesus was born somewhere between 3 and 4 BC, which fucks my mind up when you think about how the calendar was made.
You want to know something interesting about me? I went to Baptist school.
Oh, interesting.
So you were on the swim team.
I just got picked on. I just got picked on.
So you don't know your catechism.
I know my catechism. We believe in one God, the Father. I'm not going to do it. That is one thing that's like great about Catholicism is that there's an actual book that comes out every year called the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's basically like a compilement of whatever. If you're Catholic, you believe what that says.
Yeah, but no, then they made a supplement. There's also the Catholic Encyclopedia because like in any good D&D novel, you got to have extra source material.
Yeah.
Or like with every set of World Book encyclopedias, you got to have the yearbook, right?
Exactly.
Do anybody remembers encyclopedias? I guess that's a premillennial thing.
No, I remember them before they went digital. My uncle, had went to medical school, and my grandmother had the entire Encyclopedia Britannica that he had purchased on her bookshelf for many years.
And they used to have guys went door to door selling encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And now we have plugs, right?
And if your family couldn't afford the whole thing, you only bought some of them. So sometimes you had to go to yard sales and stuff to try and find the missing editions.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can I do a report on Nixon because I don't have the R's to do Roosevelt.
Okay, well, I guess it's time for Gary's segment, Carlos. Why don't you run that beautiful theme music?
I was not prepared. This is a crazy show. It's a G spot or the? Oh wait, this one.
I have no
idea.
idea.
That one or is it this one?
There you go. You got it.
All right, no,
you got it.
All right. One of the things that bothers the heck out of me in the state of Florida is that we've got a crazy market that is struggling hard to get adult use. We've got a petition going up. Everybody's putting their heart and minds into it. The fact is, we already seem to have a quasi adult use market here in the state of Florida. How often do you go to a doctor? I mean, go to a dispensary and ask them a medical question, and then you look at the deer in the headlights and from across the counter there. They don't really have the training. They don't really have the ability to tell you even what strain is good for any various things. They don't get that much training.
What makes a market an adult use or medical market? It's not necessarily the training of the bud tender, but whether or not you need to see a doctor before you see that bud tender.
Oh, I know. I got the answer. It's whether or not your Surgeon General of your state is a complete whack kook like, Jose Ladapo.
Okay.
No, let's not make fun of our Surgeon General who by the way, has a sale on ivermectin this week. Three microdose capsules. Don't tell the Department of Agriculture because I don't think it's certified.
Isn't he on the verge of losing his job at University of Florida because he didn't show up to work?
I hope so. I mean, I've been friends with the Surgeon Generals here in the state of Florida for many years. Back with let's go back at least 15 years, and this is the only guy I think who has been truly unqualified, just based on the things that he says and the things that he does. Other than that, he looks like he's totally qualified. He looks good in a lab coat. That's pretty much the way it is with Dr. Ladapo. But I don't believe in a lot of the things that he says, unfortunately, which does not give good trust. But what I was going to ask you for, going back to medical market, I don't think he has any control of that or even understanding of that. He's never even brought forth an opinion at all in regards to medical cannabis that I've heard of since he got office.
But he's in charge of the OMMU. That it falls under the Department of Health. I find it ironic we have a Surgeon General of the state who has no clue that we have a medical market that needs some direction.
We had
of the dispensaries too. Medical marijuana is actually a pretty vast field of study. Like there's a lot of things that medical marijuana can do. Mm-hmm. I don't think a company whose dedicated to the retail sales of marijuana can also take on the venture of educating every single patient.
Now, our guest today was supposed to be big into data and insights and analysis of data. And one of the things I wanted to ask her, which she's not here for, so Madeline, fuck you. Anyways, no. Now she's gonna be afraid to come on. Yeah, I know. I'm being. I apologize for that most sincerely. I won't let Carlos ever do that again. Okay. But
Madeline, I think.
But here's the deal: how many people do you know? And have you? Did you have a medical card from California before we had a medical market here in the state of Florida?
I did have a medical card in California before.
I would venture to say that there were not hundreds, but thousands of people across the state that had medical cards from California.
Yeah, but I also worked in a medical marijuana dispensary out in California, and I can tell you that the typical training out there was not any type of medical training. I had this old Vietnamese man that used to sell bud at the flea market that opened up the dispensary in California. He really we would argue all the time about marijuana and what it can do, and he honestly was really like it did not work out because I contradicted him a lot, you know.
Well, you went to Amsterdam before you got into the industry, right?
Yeah, he was threatened by how much I knew and how little he knew. He knew how to grow marijuana very well. He knew how to grow marijuana very well. He didn't know how to run a business. He knew how to sell weed. You know,
so I'm glad you brought that up, Carlos, because to Gary's point, and with the point you made earlier, it's a complex industry. You got to know how to grow it. That's one aspect, right? Yeah. Then you got to know how to run a retail establishment. But then the people working there need to be able to help medical sick people navigate to what the right product is for them. There's a 3-pronged approach to it. And as far as we can tell in Florida, and from what Gary's opinion is, they're not getting it right.
And to Gary's defense here, though,
I didn't know I was being offended.
I wasn't attacking him.
To defend your point here, right?
Yeah.
There, the bar set for so what Keno's saying is like, okay, there's areas of expertise. Marijuana is a vast field, so you can be a master of a trade or master of none, or jack of all trades or master of none, right? I don't know what I'm saying anymore, but either way, right? I like to think that I know a lot about running a retail establishment, right? I know quite a bit about medical marijuana. I studied at Amsterdam, all that shit, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know a lot about the human body. Like it's actually would be foolish to think that I know more about medical marijuana than owning a retail store, right? So, but we have our staff here is known for being very knowledgeable. Like the bar isn't set very high, right? Like you know, as long as you're not telling people that they're gonna get stoned and you have like a very just general knowledge about marijuana, and you're sharing that with the consumer, right? You're doing a good job.
And I would like to point out, by the way, if you guys have a chance to go ahead and go to our YouTube channel or go and look at our website, you can see all the old shows we've had. And just a little while ago, just before Thanksgiving, we had Ethan Russo on. And Dr. Russo is a cornucopia of information and the wellspring of cannabis knowledge, I think, as far as medical is concerned in this country. And we need bud tenders, or at least somebody on staff in those dispensaries who can actually answer the kind of questions that you could possibly pose to him and ask questions like he's doing an entire study right now on strains for migraines, which is so important because there are people who have migraines that once that aura comes, they're knocked out for the next 2 days. They just can't think, they can't work, and it's painful as hell. Mm-hmm. And yet here we have a treatment for it. And if you go to a dispensary right now, and I'm asking everybody to do this, by the way, pick your closest dispensary, which in most cases is Trulieve, and because of it, that they happen to be like more than the Starbucks practically, and ask them which of your strains is the best for migraines, and see what answer you get, if you get an answer at all.
Mm.
If they say I don't know, that may be the only honest thing that they say during the entire time you're there.
I'm tempted to say that the doctors should be responsible for advising people on the medical use of cannabis, but then, like, which strain of Trulieve is good for the migraines? You know what I mean? Like, they're not necessarily sure what the product line for Trulieve is.
Well, I felt Certera really try to boil theirs down into 3 product categories. It was like sleep, calm, and energy. I recall when they first let their products out on the market. They didn't even really have cultivars, if you will. They were just trying to put everything into like a one-stop vape pen category.
Yeah, and again, sleep, calm, and energy doesn't really tell you what you can use for your particular diagnosis. I mean, insomnia is a thing, but lack of calm, possibly anxiety, lack of energy,
depression, I guess.
depression.
I've got rheumatoid arthritis. What do you think is best for me?
Exactly.
Like,
what do
you want the calm, you want the sleep, or you want the energy? Like, let me tell you what, you take the energy during the day.
I even recall speaking to one of their VPs one time, because I went into one of their places and it was I was quizzing the bud tenders, and I went into the one over there that they had by University Mall, and one of the bud tenders there had no clue about anything about cannabis. And I said, how did that person get their job? And it's like, oh, well, that's the niece of one of the vice presidents or something. So,
Well, but the question is, how much information does the consumer have to know they have a product that is safe, potent, and actually made for the condition that they actually have?
Well, that's where you get these different databases like Weed Maps or Leafly. And they're really anecdotal diaries. Someone with a certain condition will be like, oh, I tried this strain and it helped me with this. But that's all we really have in a lot of ways. There's no formal research database to go to that folks can truly rely on from a scientific point of view. One, because scientifically, there's no actual studies of cultivars in this country. I mean, there's only one source for cultivars for scientific study, and that's that booth that the government makes at University of Mississippi, Oxford.
Which looks a lot like a Nescafe, pretty much. It looks like ground coffee at times. It's terrible. It's freeze dried, it's powdered, and oftentimes it has mold in it. Sue Sisley, if we can ever get her on here, we'll go for days as to how bad the government booth was that they were using for experiments on human beings. So here we are in human trials with a product which was substandard. That is essentially what it goes to, and yet they want to hand this over to the pharmaceutical industry. They've never treated this product properly in the first place. They want to take it apart. They want to deconstruct it down to individual molecules and push the individual molecules, when in fact it's an entourage effect that actually works. I mean, even enzymes have to have some kind of subcomponents to make them act in exactly the way they want to. So nothing really works well in a vacuum. I mean, you can get a caffeine pill. It'll make you jittery as fuck. And it won't even taste as good as this Cafe con Leche from McCafe. Product placement, yes, you can give me a free Big Mac. Anyways,
They have Cafe con Leche.
Yeah, I was like, what? When did McDonald's start selling Cafe con Leche, Gary?
actually, this is a Keurig cup. Okay, but they do. McCafe actually has Cafe con Leche Keurig cups. Is it available? I would prefer the Cafe Bustelo.
I drink the Cafe Bustelo Keurig cups.
But they got pricey lately, Yeah,
it's $10 a box. Yeah, it ain't cheap.
Hey, they're selling Teslas over right now in Havana, so they got to get extra money, right?
So
They're not just driving 57 Chevys anymore. There's actually a Tesla on the island, but it has a home charger because there is no chargers in Cuba. But we're going to get into that another time. The Americanization of Cuba, God help us.
I wonder if that guy, whoever owns it, do they work for the government?
No, actually, he's a high jumper.
He's a height jumper.
He's an Olympian rather.
Is he Tupac?
No, Tupac's dead, man.
Tupac's living in Cuba.
Tupac's aunt might be living in Cuba. I don't know about Pac.
Man,
Anyways,
yeah, let's talk about weed, guys.
well, I was just getting to the point, the fact that if we have a medical market, let's treat it as a medical market. And if we have a adult use market, that's fine. Now, other states treat it totally differently. New York has some really weird policies. Like, for instance, all adult use has to be grown outdoors,
That's weird.
which really is, I think, is weird.
I think Florida is just a good example of how politicians passing these laws aren't necessarily like they use the medical side of marijuana as a sham. Like, I don't know, it pisses me off because we always get pointed at as like, oh, you're using medical marijuana as just a step for adult use. But then the Florida government then uses medical marijuana just as a sham to allow their friends to put up businesses and make that corporate money. So, I mean, that's really what the Florida market is. That's why we're like, we're dancing around it, but that's what it is. They installed this market not because Trulieve has a long record of growing and selling medical marijuana to medical marijuana patients safely and properly, but because they're paid off.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I think we can pretty much write off the dispensaries as being the place to go to for information in regards to the product that they have, because it can't. Back in the day, you had two choices from your plug: what they have and what they got, and basically that's the way it was, and that is almost the way it is in dispensaries right now too. Because they have all these different cultivars, and they push the THC number on you like that's the most important thing. I mean, I'm saying, hey, look at this. We have Ace over 26%. Okay, but
it reminds me of those Cat Williams stand-ups, where he's like, hey, this stuff right here, remember that stuff I sold you last week? It's nothing. It's nothing to this right here. And it feels like that when you walk into these dispensaries.
All right, I'll tell you this, though, right? Everybody that works, I pay for Chillum employees med cards after they've been here for 6 months.
That's an amazing health plan. I love it.
It's all the dabs you can do on the job and medical marijuana.
No free gym membership.
It's the best health plan you can think of. No, but you can get the dabs, so it's scary.
And Carlos also has oranges and bananas for his associates, so that's antioxidants are very important.
Grapefruits and shit.
There's apples and bananas, but that's also just the name of the hash.
No, but we talk a lot about like we let people know the strains that are good at different dispensaries, and I was watching them judge their medical marijuana the other day, and they're actually looking at the terpene content, and I'm like really impressed that they really they understand that it's terpenes that really work or blah blah blah. It's a steering wheel, not the engine that you got to worry about. But I'll tell you this: even though my employees feel that way, it's the way customers just judge marijuana. And when somebody comes into a Chillum place looking for hemp, that's what they care about, and there's a lot of times my employees will steer them in a different direction, but they're like, no, I want this one that's 30%. Well,
let's take a look at the Florida market and see exactly what people are actually buying in the state. This is from one of Madeline's articles, and I'd love to have you talk about it, Madeline, but since you're not here, fuck you. Anyways.
And don't take any offense, folks. Whenever a guest doesn't show up, that's usually our standard go-to. Fuck you. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just saying, I do apologize. She's a lovely young lady. Well, she's very intelligent.
I do apologize for my fake Tourette's.
And I probably have a lot in common with her. And
I love it. It's actually subliminal thinking. But the product that sells the least of all the types of products out there that they checked out, they didn't actually look at pictures. Was cartridges. Yeah, cartridges are only 47% of the sales here in the state of Florida. 51% for pre-rolls.
Reach over here because we just put our carts on 50% off.
Ooh, good of you. And 54% for edibles and gummies. I'm sorry, soft chews, because you don't want to say gummies because that word appeals to children.
It makes Wilton Simpson cry.
I always thought that gummies were a special kind of prostitute, but we're not going to get into that.
Oh, Gary, you're killing me.
But 64% is flour.
You gotta warn me. I gotta hit the beep button.
They didn't break it down to bud versus pre-ground. And pre-ground could be one of two things. It could either be stuff that they actually found that they decided to grind up, or it could be stuff that they swept off the floor after they finished making all of their pre-rolls for the day, and after people stopped choking in the air around there, they had to deal with the powder on the ground, kind of like after Chris gets a haircut, if ever that happens, and all that stuff that's on the ground around the barber chair.
I mean, you're right though, Gary. They've had 2 deaths in this country. One by a True Leave employee in Massachusetts, and one by a G. Was it? Is it Cure Leaf or Green Leaf over in Illinois?
Yeah.
So it's crazy right now.
I wonder where their disposable vapes fall under, because that's pretty accurate for my story. But we sell the hell of out of our disposable vapes.
I'd say the same. I know people who'd rather buy, like a Pac-Man disposable than having to keep reusing carts, because carts can leak. And that's the worst thing in the world is carts leak, or you put it in your pocket, you sit down, it breaks. So, but disposable vapes also create a lot of mess. And that's another thing that concerns me about adult use, about medical marijuana, the amount of plastic waste this industry generates. And a lot of it could be addressed with, government intervention, with government regulation. Oftentimes it's the bureaucracy forcing these jars, and then people have, how many jars do you got stacked up around your house?
I don't think it's the government that needs to be involved. I think this is a problem of government involvement.
Well, no, I think that one thing this industry definitely needs is more government involvement.
Well, in this particular case, it's kind of bullshit. Like I don't think it helps that we got to put a small little gram of dab wax in this big fucking jar, and then put it into a bag and staple that shut, and then put that into another bag, and it's that, and have that shit labeled a certain way. I think there's a lot of waste involved there. I mentioned that I worked in that dispensary. We just fucking threw it in a small little bag and threw it in a paper bag and sent somebody on their way.
Well, I think that if people actually had more knowledge of the industry, there would be even less sales of cartridges. Number one, because of the fact the oil of those cartridges, just for your own effect, in the state of Florida, it is still a felony to have concentrate. Oil is a concentrate. Mm-hmm. So you could be arrested for having a concentrate if you happen to get one that's not labeled with your name on it and it's not sealed in a package while you're driving.
An illegal cart is a felony. Yeah.
Yes, it's definitely a felony. And then, of course, you had other problems with the oil itself, where they were making it thin and then thickening it with vitamin E, tocopherol, which caused the vape prices, which actually crippled the industry as well.
Gary, I want to go back to that illegal issue with vapes. So you're telling me that if I legally buy my vape from a Florida dispensary, I put the cartridge on my pen, I leave the pen, right there in my, in my cup holder in my car, that can actually get me a felony?
Yes. If your package is not sealed and has your name on it, that is officially breaking the rules. You are out of compliance. And they can, at their discretion, of course, even though they know you're a medical patient because you have a medical card, and they know that most likely it is legal because it says boof on the side, that they know that you bought it legally here in the state of Florida. And by the way, if you get medical cannabis from another state, you are out of compliance. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Now, I'll grant you, other people can come to the state of Florida and buy our stuff and not be out of compliance if they have a medical card and if they're back in their state. But not us, because we don't have reciprocity. That is just the way it is. So I can see why carts is on the other side if people have any kind of knowledge, and also the fact it makes it easier for MMTCs to do two things. One of which is get rid of all those spider webs and powdery mildew by just burning them as they extract the stuff and put it into the oil. And that of course is an issue. And the other issue, of course, is that of the hot dog water, which basically means they take THC to a certain amount, and they take a bunch of food grade terpenes and they throw that in there. And they say, "Look, we found this original strain of Gainesville Green. It's right here in this cartridge." Only, the thing with hot dog water is it tastes like a hot dog, but there's no hot dog there. That's the bottom line. So that's the problem with cartridges. And the next level up is they say that 51% of the sales is in pre-rolls. Well, I'll grant you, some of you guys, you have a hard time rolling. We have rolling contests. We got experts in here.
I wonder, most of these soft chews, right? I wonder what they're made out of. Is it similar to the oil that's put?
Well, I can tell you this: it's not a Florida soft chew, and you know how I can tell?
How?
It's red.
They got to be clear, right?
They have to be clear, and they have to be a geometric shape, preferably a cube, because otherwise kids will jump at the chance of getting it, because there's no such thing as a white gumdrop, right?
Help me out with those percentages. They don't add up to 100. Carlos, you got an MBA. Well,
it's based on sampling the public without substitution, which means there are people who do use pre-rolls and cartridges, and so therefore you could see why you would have the numbers not.
Okay, so I can see why the numbers are skewed like that.
I mean,
okay.
when you last time you went shopping, did you just buy flour, or did you buy flour and concentrate, or flour and a cartridge, or
buy dabs,
a couple of pre-rolls?
No, yeah, you're right. I buy a thing of dabs, buy flour, and then buy some pre-rolls for the road, and then buy a cart for you're right. usually a variety of stuff.
But 54% prefer edibles, and they show the gummy.
I think our senior population has a lot to do with that.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to say that. That's because Florida, again, we do have a senior population here that would gladly take a gummy. That's why they're pushing this product called Mood, I guess, on all the billboards and stuff here, which is actually hemp-derived THC that is being advertised on billboards, which I'm surprised, because it's not legal for the MTCs to do that. Why is it legal for the folks who aren't even in Florida? People that move it, I believe, are in Pennsylvania, advertising products as if you could just pick them up. And in fact, they are in Tallahassee right now working on bills that will restrict the transport of CBD-based or hemp-based products across state lines.
Well, Gary, the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor recently published survey data in the Journal of Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research, where they saw that more than 1 in 10 adults between the ages of 50 and 80 report having used cannabis products, and that's pretty high for the senior population. It's over 12% of respondents say they consumed cannabis in the past year. 34% of older consumers reported using cannabis products 4 or more days per week. And, most older adults are using it, for side effects associated with their prescription drugs, like opioids or sleep aids. And they perceive medical cannabis to be more practical and safe. And that's why we're seeing this rise in of course, edibles from our senior populations.
Yeah. Now, my mom eats edibles now.
According to her article, there are 55% of Florida cannabis market is still millennials. 55%. That's that makes sense. We are the most stressed generation.
Well,
I'm glad you said that.
Of cannabis patients are in Florida are Republicans.
Businesses should not forget that a majority, 55% of the Florida cannabis market is still millennials.
Oh, what about this shit on the bottom here?
And 30%
are Republicans.
30% of Florida cannabis consumers are Republicans. Now, the fact that, what is the percentage of Republicans in this state?
A lot.
Is it 51%, 52%?
Yeah, somewhere between half and below 55%.
I think it's more.
So if you adjust for that, that's actually pretty high. But then again, all
right, I'm going to put the camera on your face.
I am not going to go too heavily into Mr. Ziegler's issue.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, Gary.
I'm bringing it up.
So for those who don't know, the chairman of the Florida Republican Party has been accused of sexual assault because he's for the past several years has been in a throuple with his wife and another woman, and apparently the other woman is essentially claiming that he raped her and forced himself on her. These are the allegations. Obviously there's a police investigation going on, but the irony of all of it is his high moral grandstanding and the fact that his wife is the founder of Moms for Liberty, which is the, as I like to call Clan Karenhood, because, or Hoes for Hitler, or, there's tons of different monikers we could give them.
They have apologized for praising Hitler in their newsletter.
Exactly. And
it's no longer in print, even though it is.
And they still, they still are banning books because of some moral high ground that they feel that they have with their Christian values. And the wife is also a member of the Sarasota School Board. So, there's a lot to be said in unpacking all this. I am not one to condemn people. I'm a millennial. And I understand about polyamorous couples, and I understand how we are. But it pisses me off when you have Gen Xers who get on this holier than thou midlife crisis kick of being good Christians and everybody needs to conform to their worldview. And then they're out here, doing wild, kinky stuff while they expect the rest of us to live in the Handmaid's Tale. That's just messed up.
And understand that these folks have been pushing through the legislature anti-LGBTQ legislation.
Anti-abortion, yep.
All that stuff. And those are the people who were preaching to us from their high ground, when in fact the woman who was pushing that thing was involved in an LGBTQ relationship. And I think that this is only my conjecturing, of course, but if she's claiming sexual batteries, was maybe for once he got involved, and she didn't like that. That's my guess right there. And so the lady who was pushing that we should not have any books in the library where a woman actually smiles at another woman because that could be sexual, that is the lady who is telling us we have to ban all those books. And yet there she is. And it's not the first time that I've seen folks in the Republican Party actually preach from a dirty hand position as well. That is just, going back to what was the name of that representative from East Florida who was soliciting the boys and texting and then running an organization to help kids who had been abused.
Yeah, there's that example. There's tons of examples of Republicans from Congress, all through the state houses of going hard against the LGBT community and then getting caught in a bathroom in Walmart or at a glory hole, at some Florida a porn shop. You got. I recall one of the most disgusting ones was an assemblyman in New York gave a long tirade about the dangers of marijuana, and then when they were on like a short recess break, got arrested for hotboxing his car in the parking garage.
Yes, but he wasn't driving at the time.
but the hypocrisy of public officials, and the fact that it's drag queens grooming the kids because they're teaching them how to read. Hey, if you don't want drag queens reading to the kids, don't take your kid to drag queen story time. But don't sit there and, say other people can't take their kids to this event if that's what they choose to do. Let people parent how they want to parent. Let people live their lives how they want to live. But you shouldn't force government intervention into people's lives and into people's businesses in a way that harm them and force them to conform when you yourself as an elected official aren't doing that. It's ludicrous. Just pure ludicrous.
And let's segue, I think, into some of the bills that we're talking about this year.
Well, I just want to take a moment to validate this because this is the core of the marijuana civil rights movement, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's about freedom. It's about liberty. It's about civil rights. NORML exists to protect the civil rights of all responsible cannabis users. And moving forward, we want to ensure a safe and affordable access to quality marijuana And so I think that we have a role also in speaking out against an unregulated market and speaking about and poor actors in the market and speaking out for the patients who are getting left behind over profits. And that is what has shaped our legislative agenda in Florida. And that's what shapes Normal's mission moving forward at the national level. So, Gary, you have worked very hard for the past several years as our political director to not only get sponsors and raise awareness and educate elected officials, but also to put your head together with me and Carlos and the other amazing members of our board, and even folks at the national level and in other states to really address the shortcomings of what the patient experience is in Florida. And so, we finally got our bills essentially out of drafting. Now we're at the process where we need bill sponsors. We need Republicans and Democrats to step up to the plate in Florida and actually move these bills through the legislative process over the next, 3 months. And so to give us the rundown of what we got and where we need everyday folks who are watching to help out. I mean, we're obviously going to work with National to put out action alerts, but give us the rundown of what the legislative agenda is.
Okay. First off, I should mention that each one of our bills allows the people who sponsor them to get a moral high ground, because that's where we're coming from in regards to all these things. It's not to benefit the industry. It's not to benefit somebody's ideological agenda. It's for people to have liberty. That's why they call me a lib. I'm into liberty. Okay. And that's what we're talking about. Now, the first bill I want to talk about, of course, is one that we just introduced this year. And that is the Patients' Rights Protection Act. And I think they may even like the GOP may even like the title of that, because that's basically the way that they were pushing a lot of the other things in regards to parental rights. But here's the problem. If you are a medical patient in the state of Florida and you are using your product correctly at home, which makes it totally legal and totally in the right thing, if the Department of Children and Families goes into your home for whatever reason, they can petition the government to have your kids taken away at this point in time. Now, there are reasons why they should do that in some cases, where the drug abuse does not stop at cannabis, because that's not abuse in the first place. But if there's other drugs involved, if there's mental illness involved, if there's domestic violence involved, then those things make sense. But just having cannabis in the house by itself should not be a reason to have you lose your kids. It doesn't make any sense, especially if you take care to make certain that the kids don't have access to your medicine, which is the way it should be with any medicine you have in your house, whether it's Tylenol or the Kool-Aid extra stuff. We're not getting into that. Anyways, the whole point is, don't let kids play with your medicine, and you're fine. That should be it. And that is exactly where the bill comes down to. And it goes down to the exact statute which discusses how somebody can have their kids taken away, and says that the use of cannabis alone should not be the reason for a petition to be filed. And I think that is so important, because there are parents whose lives practically depend on their ability to use this medically, either because they are one of our wounded warriors and they have PTSD or something to that effect. There's no reason at all. If it's just the use of cannabis medically and they're doing it correctly, that would be the same thing as if they came by and they took your gun just because you don't have it locked up. That kind of situation. Everybody who's a responsible gun owner essentially locks up their gun somewhere, right?
Well, Gary, the fact that it can be used against you in a custody hearing too, right? Like, just the fact that you own a gun shouldn't disqualify you from having custody of your kids. No different than the fact that you utilize medical marijuana should disqualify you from being a custodial parent.
Yeah. And that brings us to the next bill. And this is something that Chris had been working on very hardly. And that is in regards to a Second Amendment rights and the use of cannabis. Chris, you want to break that down?
Well, all in all, it's very simple. It is clearly enshrining that the sanctioned medical use of cannabis through the state of Florida, if you're following all that, shall not infringe upon your right to bear arms. It's in our state constitution that your right to bear arms should not be infringed, and this is just codifying in the law that your use of medical marijuana should not affect that in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, and I respect people who own guns and use them responsibly. That makes perfect sense. And yes, Carlos, that does say that some people actually do use it irresponsibly.
Well,
But I know,
here's the thing, Gary. If you're a medical marijuana patient,
I agree.
you have marijuana in your home. If for some reason you don't live in the best of neighborhood, there may be people watching you who may want to come take your marijuana. What are you going to do? You know, in that case, you're probably going to defend your home by any means necessary. And you know, that's just a fact. We live in a time where you know, the struggle is real.
I mean, you should be allowed to defend yourself if necessary, if you're in a bad neighborhood. But and there's other people who just hang around Ybor City at night, right? And that's a bad commercial for Ybor. But a lot of the law enforcement officers I talked to said it was only a matter of time, essentially, because they need to take a little bit better look of keeping Ybor safe for everybody who comes by. Do you see that as a problem, Carlos?
Keeping Ybor safe?
Yeah.
When the police had a bigger presence out here, it wasn't a big deal. I felt very safe. But
okay, you hear that, Mayor Castor?
I do
need more police in Ybor.
The pre-pandemic, the way they shut down the streets, there was a cop stationed on every corner. And there was not that for a long time. I do think that the police, I mean, I sound like a fucking conspiracy theorist right now, but I think the police were
there is aluminum foil under the desk,
deliberately drawing back police presence because they wanted something to happen in that they could handle this way in the media.
Carlos, did it ever occur that Mayor Castor's plan to bring the Rays Stadium to Ybor City and possibly being able to drive up crime and drive down property values in order to make it, I don't know, appetizing enough to build that stadium in Ybor? That's not necessarily a conspiracy. That's just how she does business, right?
And of course, who cares if there are graves that are going to have to get dug up and moved to I don't know, Tallahassee.
I remember pre-pandemic Ybor, there were some racist cops on horseback that used to love to tase people and be like, "Woo, get some, boy, get some." You know, I remember those days.
I remember,
that's dangerous because you could tase your horse. Seriously,
I remember pre-pandemic. I knew the cops' names. Like I knew their names. They stopped by. They talked to us. Right. They would come by. That we would know there was like a gang in the area that was like trying to cause problems because they would come by and tell us. I don't know these cops anymore. They don't have a presence out here like they once did.
Well,
and I mean that's probably why. And then you know, like let's look at this, right? Like, this was a shooting between two groups of people, right? Mm-hmm. That were carrying guns.
Because Halloween is the best time to carry a gun.
And the media insists on calling it a mass shooting, like some dude came out here with the intention of killing thousands of people. And like,
no, it's just
a gang shooting, bro.
People got hurt by the giant exodus from across the street.
I mean, I remember when pre-pandemic, the cops used to wear civvies with a bulletproof vest and would have paintball guns and just walk through the crowd if the crowd got too rowdy and just start lighting people up with paintballs.
Yeah.
Or rubber bullets.
And so I and this doesn't really help my case, but there was shootings out here quite regularly. Like I'm not even going to, like I had a friend named Rashad that worked over at Gaspar's Grotto. Was just hanging out at a reservoir bar. Got shot because he said the wrong thing to some guy. Right? Mm-hmm. Not newsworthy at all. Not newsworthy at all. For some reason, this is the people at 7-Eleven. I remember a point in time that every single clerk at 7-Eleven got shot at one point.
Damn.
Like,
yeah, I would look at your contract if you work there just to see if it's in there. But let's just segue off to law enforcement officers for a moment. One of the most stressful jobs in law enforcement, I would think, is being a guard in the prisons, of which unfortunately are flourishing here in the state of Florida. And when you have a guard who needs to de-stress, who is probably getting PTSD from the things he sees in the prison, and utilizes cannabis, should he lose his job because he got a random drug test, even though he had not used it in the last 24, 48 hours before he even got on shift? That's an issue right now that's being played out in the courts. Our friend Michael Minardi is helping out with that. They did not win their case in the circuit court or the Court of Appeals, but we're going now to the Supreme Court. And I don't have a lot of hope because we do have a rather conservative Supreme Court, and we'll discuss them in a minute too, in regards to how they handle the situation as far as the petition for adult use here in the state of Florida. But the fact is, our first responders have seen things they can't unsee. And I think that for that reason, that they are there to protect us, that we should give a damn about them. And I've talked to various sheriffs about this. I've talked to Cronster, I've talked to Gualtieri, I've talked to a couple other ones. Grady Judd won't talk to me anymore. But the fact is, we do have police who could use a better treatment for PTSD than what they're offering right now, which basically is like yoga and acupuncture. And and various other forms that don't really work all that well.
If more cops smoke weed, I think it'd be a better state all around. Just my humble opinion.
If more cops smoked weed, they'd confiscate my weed more.
Well, that's a possibility.
You know what, though? I'd be okay with cops confiscating the weed rather than taking people to jail. Just saying. Like the cops in the movie Friday After Next, right? Right. I would have less issue with police brutality if you just shook someone down for their drugs and let them go on their merry way than wasting my tax dollars and taking people out of the workforce to incarcerate them for however many, grams of weed that they may have. Trafficking is one thing, but someone with an ounce or less it doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of our tax dollars.
Well, we do have a bill that's already been filed so far this year. Thank you, Senator Polsky, which is our Employee Protection Act, which basically states that you can't be fired for using cannabis or for having a medical card if you're using cannabis at home when you're not on shift and all that kind of situation.
Now, this is only for public employees. I just want to specify. So this would be for state workers. We originally set out that it was going to be every worker in the state, but we knew the Florida Chamber of Commerce would rally a strong majority against it, would bury this bill. So we just want to allow the purview of the state workers and let the state set the example first. To me, the people who work at the at the unemployment office, right, or school teachers, or administrators, just firefighters, cops, DMV,
yeah,
high stress jobs,
Our high stress jobs,
high stress jobs that don't pay well.
Well, there are exceptions, right? Like, obviously, school bus drivers should not be intoxicated while they're driving the kids to school.
True.
But other than that, I don't foresee, any issue why most other public employees shouldn't qualify under this statute to not be fired or be precluded from a job. We see it every year since we've passed medical marijuana. School teacher gets fired. School administrator injured during breaking up a fight, goes on medical marijuana for a back injury, comes back and is fired for pissing hot. Prison guard gets injured and shanked in a prison fight, goes on medical marijuana for the recovery, comes back pissing hot, gets fired,
Are you allowed to drive a school bus when you have a prescription to barbiturates or opiates or anything like that?
Yes,
you are. Then you should be allowed to smoke weed, man.
You could have 9 keys of OxyContin in your pocket and drive a school bus right now. Yeah.
But we have to put these things and water the bills down because of the political, moral grandstanding that we have, in Tallahassee.
Yeah, it's basically what we're talking about. So we appreciate Senator Polsky pushing this for us. We want to get that precedent set. We want to show that the Florida actually has the intelligence and the emotional intelligence to understand the people of the state of Florida and how hard they work and how sometimes if there are conditions that prevent them from working, it hurts them as well as it hurts us when they aren't taxpayers as well. If you think about that. So we're pushing that, and there is an amendment which sets up a study to see if first responders lose any performance if they're using cannabis when they're not on shift and they're not on call.
Yeah.
because they need our protection as well, and that's basically what I was getting at. Now, the next bill we're talking about is the Patient Protection Act, which very simply states that when you're using cannabis in a legal manner, your medicine is not illicit, and that basically goes to help you out when, for instance, if you are on a transplant waiting list, they can take you off that waiting list if you are a cannabis patient. And that is unfair. It was based on the fact that they originally were claiming that survivability is lessened when you use cannabis. But in fact, there are multiple studies which show that the survivability is actually higher because the body is less weakened when it gets to the point when you get to that part where you can get your transplant.
I wonder if I gave blood, if like the person that got my blood would get high.
No, THC continues to break down regardless whether it's in your body or out of it. I know because I've drank plenty of tons of blood and I've gotten no high of it whatsoever.
You drank blood? What?
Gary,
have you tried the blood transfusion though?
Gary is trolling the old anti-Semitic stereotypes, Carlos, that he drinks blood.
Well, I
know that.
This is how we make our matzah, people. Okay.
I want to know if my blood will get people high. And I think you went the wrong way about drinking it, Gary. I think you should have injected it.
No, I don't like injections.
Well, the other thing about the patient protection bill, people are still getting kicked off of pain management plans because opioid pill pusher doctors, don't like the fact that there's something else coming around that's cutting in on their business, and that's dangerous because oftentimes people need to be stepped down off these addictive opioids, and they're not. The doctor just cuts them off as soon as they find out they're using medical marijuana. So there are a lot of other ramifications for this bill, even building on in the future. I mean, right now in the state of Florida, pregnant women are not allowed to get a medical marijuana recommendation. But, pregnancy is one of the most difficult times, on a woman's body. There's consistent pain, there's consistent nausea for several months. And oftentimes the taking B6 or taking Unisom or whatever pills they're giving folks for nausea doesn't work. But medical cannabis has been effective for thousands of years. And they've done studies in other countries like Jamaica where they've seen that it has no negative outcomes, on a developing baby, on a fetus, because you got to also take into account other factors. They love to just dump in junkies who are on heroin and crack and everything else. And just so happens if they say they smoke weed, oh, look, babies come out with low birth weight. Like, you didn't take any of those other factors into account. But the fact is that we just saw a case just this year where I read that a mother in South Carolina utilized cannabis during pregnancy, and she's going on 4 years. As soon as she gave birth, they took her baby away. Granted, at least her mother, the grandmother, was able to get custody, but the baby is now 4 and has never been in the home with her mother because of cannabis use during the pregnancy. So, like, these are the type of things that a patient protection bill can build on in future years. Because the fact is that, as we said, we got a parental rights bill we also want to get passed. You should not lose your kids, whether you utilize cannabis post-birth or pre-birth. It makes no sense that cannabis is a state-sanctioned medicine, but then we got all these exceptions for some stupid reason. And that's where our legislative agenda really tries to address is your civil rights as a cannabis user at its core.
And one of the other things we're trying to address in our bills is the health of Florida's economy as well. We survive very heavily on tourism here in the state of Florida. Always have, ever since we were a swamp that we were trying to sell people plots in Miami. And the fact is, we have people coming here constantly who bring their medicine over here. They sometimes fly and they risk the TSA going ahead and pulling a sample from them and all that kind of stuff. And some people just, they put it in their luggage or they mail it, that kind of situation. The fact is, they have to go to extra extremes to bring their medicine here to the state of Florida. And one of the reasons that people often cancel travel plans is because of health. And so if this would not having access to the legal cannabis here in the state of Florida, it opens up to our tourists to be vulnerable to arrest. So they come here on vacation, leave on probation.
Yeah.
Or any number of possibilities, because if you push them to the black market, the legacy market, which when it's not on Black Friday, they could possibly get product which is less than safe. I'm just saying it does happen.
Well, you bring up a great point. Why are the federal government, because of their inaction, is basically forcing Americans to become drug smugglers because they want to bring their medicine with them on vacation or over state lines. And then, the state of Florida has it to where only Florida residents have access to our medical marijuana system. Gary, I think this tourist reciprocity bill that you've written is amazing. Tell us how it works exactly.
Okay, basically, if you are coming to the state of Florida, you can apply for a one-time reciprocity ticket, so to speak, that allows you for $10 to come here and go to a dispensary and pick up all the product that you need for the time that you are here. And of course, you have to use it all up before you leave. That allows you to have access to legal, tested, good medicine, and it prevents you from being illegal in utilizing it. And that $10 per person, if you figure out how many tourists we have here in the state of Florida, which is over 140 million a year, that can raise as much as $70 to $80 million in revenue for the state of Florida, which could pay for Visit Florida, which is our interesting tourist campaign. Like we need one. So, which also has commercials that are shown in Abu Dhabi.
Well, there's billboards in Ohio that say Visit Florida, So I find it interesting. Gary, is there any time limit? You mentioned about, your time here. Some folks are snowbirds. They'll spend up to 6 months in Florida and then, maintain their residency in another state. So how long does that $10 buy you access to the medical market in Florida?
6 months is what it is right now, so that we can be in tune with the same people like the snowbirds who can get a temporary residency card.
Didn't the Department of Health drastically raise the renewal fees?
That was the renewal fees for dispensaries or MMTCs.
Yeah.
Previously, every 2 years, when they get their license renewed, so they can continue being a dispensary or MMTC. It was $60,000. It's now 1.45 million.
They were saying that they needed to do that because we don't tax the medicine here in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
they extract the money from the MMTCs who pass on the savings to you.
They're essentially saying that that the marijuana system needs money. They're essentially saying it right there. This is a good way. The reciprocity thing is a good way to make sure that money.
Yeah, it's a good point. Does it? Where's this regulation where they need to pay for these regulators? I don't see it.
And I understand the whole idea of saying that this, offer patients the opportunity to have safe medicine and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm tired of the rhetoric, I guess you would say, not saying that it's wrong or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just every time somebody says, "Oh, we need access to safe cannabis," right? I'm like, damn, the black.
Then why do you let True Leaf sell it?
I've never gone to the hospital because of a bag of weed I bought on the street. I've never heard of this happening before. I've never heard of somebody even, yes, it's possible that you can have medicine that's grown with pathogens and pests. Yes, it's possible that there's mold on there. Yes, it's possible that you can smoke something and that mold will cause you to suffocate. But I've never fucking met anybody that's happened to. You know what I mean? I've never heard of this.
Now, to the state of New York, listen, guys, you're saying that all the adult use dispensaries have to use outside grows. outside grows have a greater potential to get more bacteria, more mold, that etc. And so, unless you lower that bar in regards to testing for that product, you're not doing anybody any favors, except for trying to grab some extra money here and there.
This is true.
I don't
Just
know.
random cameos on the show, Carlos.
Ladies and gentlemen, Julio. Anyways, no, he's not here anymore. And then, of course, we have a bill that allows home grow. I know people don't really want home grow in this state.
Well, let's be clear. The home grow bill is for certified patients only, right? Correct?
Exactly right. Because of it, there are many reasons why you might want home grow. Number one, let's say you have a particular condition that requires a particular boutique strain, or I'm sorry, cultivar that you can't always get in the stores because it's not booth.
Yeah, let's say you need Harlequin for the right one, or you need that pre-98 Bubba Kush.
I like cat piss.
Or you've got a high degree of interactive.
I want cat piss.
You need more CBG in the stuff that you use. That kind of situation. Some of the minor cannabinoids aren't all that minor when it comes to guiding you towards health.
There are some cannabinoids that curb appetite. There are other ones that increase it. If you're someone struggling with weight loss, if you were to smoke certain cultivars that can bring out or suppress appetite, that could help.
Dude, smoking THCV blows my mind.
So
getting stoned and not being hungry, so weird.
So what this bill does is it creates what is called cultivation centers, which are basically like containers that are made to set up for multiple people to go ahead and grow their own in a enclosed space. So you have an indoor grow, which is safer than everybody else, and you have within that facility expert people who can give you tutelage to grow your medicine. Because just throwing good seeds into the ground behind your house, you may end up with heavy metals soaked up into that. You never know what exactly you're going to get. This way, you know that your medicine is medicine grade, and that you've taken love and care and made it for yourself, and therefore you've reduced the cost, and you have the right medicine that you need. So that's why it's so important to create these cultivation centers. That would be a great business for minorities to be able to get into if they want to get into the market, or people who have less than several $1 billion in their back pocket.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Gary, because we just had this black farmer license a battle in the state of Florida, which is essentially has gone on for several years until a black farmer actually got it, and then first thing to happen is it gets cashed out to a multi-state operator. So the fact is that Florida is never going to be a mom and pop industry on the retail side for medical marijuana, but with this home grow centers, this does give the opportunity for small businesses to actually get a foot in the door in some type of ancillary manner into the industry beyond just selling rolling papers.
And the Department of Agriculture can verify the fact that these cultivation centers are legit, and everybody is getting good medication. And because they're always so worried about diversion of product, everybody will know over in Tallahassee just how much you planted and just how much you harvested. So they will know there's no diversion. So you can make the people in Tallahassee sleep well at night, if that's what gets them off. And it would be a win-win for everybody involved. Absolutely everybody involved. And we hope that we move this forward. We also have a bill that allows for the expansion of qualifying conditions. Right now, we've got 10 qualifying conditions. The 10th one, of course, being one of items of a like or similar nature to other ones, which needs to be interpreted. And in that interpretation, the Board of Medicine, the Board of Osteopathic Medicine could potentially look at a pattern in the way that doctors are prescribing and shut them down, because they're using all these mental gymnastics to be able to fit these squarish holes into roundish pegs.
Yeah,
around. Yeah, even with the peg into the hole. This is why I've got 3 kids. Anyways, so we include 35 other conditions that have been approved in other states for things that they aren't even thinking about right now, like chronic depression, like sickle cell anemia, like autism. I'm so shocked that we still even have autism in the qualifying conditions right now, because is that a like or similar condition to seizures? No, it's not the same as HIV. No, it's not the same as glaucoma. No, that kind of situation. So we need to make certain that again make our patients and our doctors safe from scrutiny, because all they're trying to do is take care of the medicine, is take care of the patients.
Speaking of making doctors safe, the state over the past year, went after was Dr. Dorn in Tallahassee. They set up a whole sting operation to try and invalidate his doctor recommendations he was giving out. When in fact he was compliant the whole time. He was eventually acquitted. But how much of our tax dollars did the state waste trying to bust a doctor who was doing right by everybody?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I have heard from many legislators that they practically expect that there will be lawsuits every single year about the legislation that they give. And my question is basically, why would you create legislation will be challenged in court? Maybe there's a problem with the legislation if it needs to be challenged in court. I mean, there are frivolous lawsuits, grant you. But the fact is, if you know damn well that the legislation you're doing is going to be challenged, why even bother pushing it? Why even bother wasting that short period of time, that 2 months we have our legislation in session for a bill which is going to be halted by the courts and probably not even implemented for years while it remains in the courts, and we continue to throw money at it to give all the lawyers and lobbyists their fair share of this thing. That is unnecessary. It's like unfunded mandates. It doesn't work. So let's get our legislators to work smarter, not harder.
Well, Gary, that's ironic because earlier it's been almost a month now. On the 8th of November, the Supreme Court heard arguments from Ashley Moody's team trying to strike down the Smart and Safe Florida Amendment. And we've put it out there in our emails and such for folks to watch. It's on YouTube. Ironically, the arguments that they were using, they tried to quote justices who had struck down previous amendments, very conservative ones, by the way. And those conservative justices basically told the state, that's not what I meant, that's not what I said, and you're full of shit. And so, the state made very poor arguments in trying to strike down Smart and Safe Florida. I'm not giving any props to the merits of whether or not folks want an adult use market dominated by the multi-state operators that currently exist. But I am saying is that Trulieve did their homework. They saw the shortcomings of previous adult use bills. They know the Florida environment. They got DeSantis donors to run the campaign as a front, the Bellamy brothers. They got GOP operatives like the folks who ran Ted Cruz's presidential campaign to run the field operations. They got the right GOP lawyers. I mean, they did everything possible to make this a bill that would get through, it's a conservative court. So, we're still waiting to see what the court says. But all in all, I was actually, I felt a little bit bad for the attorneys from the state in the smackdown that they got from the judges. It remains to be seen whether or not that was just political theater, or do the judges actually believe that the amendment, has the merit that it needs to make the ballot. So we're still waiting on that. We're in a holding pattern.
And the lawyer for Trulieve, Dan Bash, I tried to get him on board to come over and talk to us, but he is really on an embargo until the judge renders an opinion, and I can respect that.
Sure.
So hopefully he'll get a chance to explain why he won or lost after that point happens. But these are the two arguments they had, which was almost ludicrous in their state. We have a legislature which set up this oligopoly. They set it up exactly so only millionaires and billionaires can get in to the situation, and they can monopolize the entire industry. And yet the argument of the state was that this bill confuses the public into thinking that anybody will be able to get into the market, and that only the MMTCs won't be the only ones selling. I don't think that the average person who uses cannabis is up at night wondering what market share Trulieve has versus what market share Grow Healthy has.
Well, I don't think the average voter is that stupid either. And on top of it, they have organizations like NORML educating them on what this is. And we've said from the beginning, this does nothing to expand civil rights. It does nothing to expand home grow. It simply allows the existing MMTCs to sell over the counter to people 21 and up without a doctor's recommendation. That's all it does. And I think that the way it's written, the average voter can walk away in the ballot booth and understand that. And then now it's up to you as the voter to go vote yes or no if that's what you want.
And again, they use the same argument before that had been used before, which says this makes people believe that it's federally legal. Nowhere in there does it say that you automatically think it's federally legal just because Florida is trying to make this legal. And that was because they used the word allow. And how can it be allowed if it's still federally illegal? That kind of situation. So good try, Ashley and team. But
well, Gary, I just wanted to take the time real quick. Ohio recently voted on a constitutional amendment or ballot initiative, which allowed for adult use. And the Republican legislature in that state is still trying to, even though they lost, even though the voters said, yes, we want this, they're still trying to fight it and not enforce it. Same with the abortion rights that they passed. And, Florida has those two things on the horizon. So it's going to be interesting to see, will the Florida Republican Party buck the voters, much in the same way the Ohio Republican Party is. Paul Armentano, our deputy director at National Normal, recently wrote an amazing op-ed in The Hill that said, Republicans respect state rights until the people choose to legalize marijuana or abortion.
That is the way it is. And what we are looking, again, for legislators to go ahead and sponsor these bills and move them forward. So if you are a legal aid who's watching as your guilty pleasure on Sunday mornings, or you are actually a legislator who happen to tune in, these bills are available to you. And we'll be more than happy to sit down and talk with you about all the ins and outs, all the references we use behind the bills, and where we got the language from, and whether it's been tested or not. And I can tell you that all those things are true. Yeah. And so that we can go from there. Now, so that's what we've done. What are you going to do? Well, one thing you should do is join Suncoast Normal in our fight. We need people to speak out, because I could talk all day, but I'm only one guy, and I'm only 5'8" or whatever it is. So I can't fill a room, and I can't shake the tree as much as I want to by myself. So I am asking you guys to come over and help us shake that damn tree. And get these wrongs righted. I mean, these are things which are common sense, and yet we have to drill through all this extra work to make certain that the legislature understands that there's a problem here and a solution. So we're not just talking problems; we're talking solutions, and we want you to do that as well. And we want you to join us in our fight. And to that end, we want you to become a member, which is not a high price situation. Chris, tell them what we get when we go ahead and have people join.
Well, a Suncoast Normal membership, of course, you'll get a membership card showing that you're an official member. You can show that card at Chillum, which will entitle you to a 25% discount. Carlos is as our deputy director, has been so kind to support us as an organization and to offer our members those discounts. In addition, our members are offered discounts at various doctors' clinics and doctors' recommendations. You can go on our website and check out those sponsors as well. We also, as a membership, you get free access to our certain member events. We just had our Halloween party recently. We have the Best Blunt in the Bay competition. We have tons of other amazing events, member sessions and such, all throughout the year that allow you to get in. And you get a membership lapel pin for the low cost of $25 a year. And you might ask yourself, well, what is that $25 going to go towards? It's going to go towards everything that Gary just ran down with our legislative agenda. It's going to go towards educating both the public and the elected officials in this state on the intricacies of your civil rights and how cannabis policy affects you and how we need to make a change. I don't take a salary for this. Gary, Carlos, none of us get paid to be members of this organization. We're in a volunteer-based, board. We are a membership-driven.
Use that to smoke weed?
Well, not really. but if you ever go to Tallahassee and you see a guy sleeping in his car, it's usually me. just because of like the hotels cost. And although I don't mind it, I think some legislatures actually notice the fact that I'm still wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago when I go by to visit them, and they're not that happy that I'm stopping by. So let's make them happier and more and more receptive to what we're talking about.
Indeed. And, if you want to become a member by going on our website, going online, and then picking up your membership, you can. Or you can check us out at one of our upcoming events that we're going to be at. And as a matter of fact, Gary is going to be the guest speaker to kind of running down our legislative agenda. Carlos, if you want to take the bottle, there you go. At the Okeechobee Cannabis Festival, which is going to be December 9th at the Big O Flea Market. Gary's going to give a rundown of our legislative agenda that we just pretty much, everything we talked about in this last hour and a half in a 5-minute speech, but also we'll have a booth out there. You can come by, purchase your membership for the year. You can go ahead and get some normal swag. We have, some amazing Suncoast Normal products. And again, all the proceeds go to education and our pushing our legislative agenda forward.
Yeah, that slide's got to get in there every week, doesn't it?
Every week.
So
It's gonna be like subliminal. Like
The 90s were a wild time, and I can tell you the 90s the marketing was definitely an era before the political correctness of the modern era took hold. For some reason, the government thought it was a good idea to think that, we'll get people to not smoke weed by by appealing to their deepest homophobic fears.
that's right.
I want it to be subliminal. I just want to flash it every single show. So like people that tune in every week, they're like, man, I really think marijuana should be legalized, but it makes you gay.
So if you happen to be in the vicinity of Lake O in South Florida and you can't make it to Tallahassee, come in here what I have to say, and we'll still link you up with how you can actually contact those folks, even when you're in Florida and you can't go up to Tallahassee, which is kind of a weird place anyway.
Well, if you live in a rural part of Florida, you're actually the type of voter that we need to be involved. Florida is essentially an island of big cities that tend to vote blue, surrounded by counties of rural red. And the Republican Party of Florida runs the state legislature. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. These are the realities. Regardless of how folks feel politically, without the Republican legislators' support of these bills to give them hearings, to sponsor them, to move them through the process, we're not going to see anything. So, again, we jumped on the Republican Party chair's head earlier today, but the truth is that we're not anti-Republican as an organization. We're anti-bullshit. Republican, Democrat, we call people to the carpet and we take them to task when they're bullshitting the voters, when they're bullshitting with our civil rights. And the time for the bullshit is over. It is time for us, the people, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your religious creed, regardless of your ethnic background, to come together under the umbrella of our organization, of Normal, and fight for the civil rights that that have been infringed upon for far too long in this country.
Yeah. All right. And with that, guys, we're done waiting for for Maddie to show up. Hopefully, we'll be able to get her in here in the next couple of weeks or whenever it is that she decides to show up. And we will have, as usual, another great guest next week. Just wait and see who it is. You'll find out later on in the week. In the meantime, guys, peace out. I'll see you next Saturday in Lake O.